When the California morning sun cast its warm light over the suburban neighborhood, Rachel Johnson was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Her day began with service to her family. She turned on the coffee maker and prepared the strong blend that her father Robert preferred. "Rachel, did you prepare Dad's medication?" her mother Barbara called as she came down the stairs. Without turning around, Rachel answered, "Yes, Mom. It's by his bedside as usual." Rachel worked as a nurse at the local St. Mary's Hospital. After finishing her 12-hour shifts, she came home to a mountain of housework waiting for her: cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, and accompanying her parents to medical appointments. This was her daily routine. Taking care of the family was considered her natural role. "Isn't Olivia coming today?" Barbara muttered with dissatisfaction. Her younger sister Olivia worked as a manager at the luxury department store Nordstrom and lived in a high-rise apartment in Beverly Hills. She occasionally visited the family home on weekends, but only for brief appearances to show her face to her parents. She never helped with household chores. Raised as the family princess, from childhood, she was beautiful, talented, and received all of her parents' adoration. "She has brunch plans with her fiancé Matthew today," Rachel answered matter-of-factly. Matthew Anderson was an elite lawyer and partner at a prestigious Los Angeles law firm. He was tall, handsome, and well-paid, exactly the ideal son-in-law their parents had dreamed of. Robert came down the stairs with his graying hair neatly combed, maintaining his usual dignified demeanor. "Good morning, Rachel. Hospital again today?" "Yes, Dad. Afternoon shift. I'll be back in the evening." "I see. Work hard," Robert said as he accepted his coffee cup. "You should have gotten a successful job like Olivia." A small pain shot through Rachel's heart, but she didn't let it show on her face. Such comparisons were routine. Olivia's brilliant success versus her own ordinary life. To the family, Rachel was always the inferior one. In the morning, Rachel took her mother to the internist. Barbara needed her blood pressure medication adjusted. While flipping through magazines in the waiting room, she thought about her boyfriend James Miller. James worked at a local auto repair shop. He was honest, kind, and genuinely loved Rachel. However, the family looked down on him as just a mechanic. Without education or high income, he didn't meet the Johnson family's standards. Especially when compared to successful men like Matthew, James's worth was treated as practically nothing. "Rachel, you really need to seriously think about your future," Barbara said on the way home from the appointment. "Not getting married and dating a mechanic. Look at Olivia, that girl made such a smart choice." Rachel listened silently while driving. She was expected to meet her family's expectations rather than pursue her own happiness. And those expectations were always measured against Olivia as the standard. In the evening, when Rachel returned from the hospital, she found Olivia chatting with their parents in the living room. She wore an expensive designer suit with perfect makeup and carried a small Tiffany bag. "Welcome home," Olivia smiled brightly. "I bought Mom a new necklace." Barbara excitedly opened the box and took out a beautiful pearl necklace. "Olivia, such an expensive gift." "Thank you so much. Matthew and I chose it together. We thought it would suit you, Mom." Robert also looked at his daughter with satisfaction. Olivia is truly a devoted daughter. Successful and never forgets her parents. Rachel began preparing dinner in the kitchen. No one welcomed her home or showed concern for her day's fatigue. Her presence was taken for granted like air. That night, James called. "How was your day? You sound tired." His gentle voice brought some comfort to Rachel's heart. "I'm fine. It's just the usual. You're not a housekeeper, Rachel. Maybe you should take better care of yourself?" Rachel looked out the window as she answered. "They're family. This is my role." Rachel's alarm went off every morning at 5:30. Before her 12-hour hospital shift, she prepared breakfast for the family, organized her father's medications, and measured her mother's blood pressure. This was how her day began. "Rachel, the coffee is too weak," Robert complained without looking up from his newspaper. Sorry, Dad, Rachel hurried to make fresh coffee. There was no time for her own breakfast. She thought she could buy something at the hospital cafeteria as she picked up her bag. At the hospital, Rachel was like a different person. She was trusted by patients and colleagues, and her supervisor evaluated her as one of the most reliable nurses. She handled ICU emergencies calmly and was assigned to mentor young nurses. Here, her value was recognized. Rachel, working overtime again, her colleague Sarah asked with concern. You've looked pale lately. Why don't you take some time off? I'm fine, Rachel smiled. I have things to do at home, so I need to get back early. Even after returning home, there was no rest. Dinner preparation, cleaning, laundry, managing her parents' medical appointment schedules, refilling prescriptions, balancing the household budget. Saturdays meant grocery shopping and deep cleaning the entire house. Sundays involved driving her parents to church and preparing a week's worth of meals. Meanwhile, Olivia's weekends were completely different. Massages at luxury spas, dinner dates with Matthew, shopping with friends. When she visited the family home once a month, she always brought expensive gifts that delighted her parents. Olivia has really succeeded, Barbara always said after her daughter left. That girl has a bright future. And Matthew is such a wonderful man. One Sunday afternoon, Rachel was tending to the garden. While pulling weeds in the autumn sunlight, Mrs. Parker from next door called out to her. Rachel, you really work so hard. I admire you. The neighbor had been watching the Johnson family for years. But sometimes you should think about yourself too. You have a life of your own. That evening, Olivia visited with Matthew. They had come to discuss wedding preparations. We want to have the ceremony next spring, Olivia said excitedly. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, garden party style. Wonderful. Barbara clapped her hands in delight. The preparation will be a lot of work, but Rachel will help, won't you? Rachel turned around while washing dishes. Of course. I'll help however I can. I need to make the invitation list too, Olivia continued. I'd like you to come dress shopping with me, and I need to discuss flower arrangements. Matthew said apologetically, Rachel, I'm sorry to burden you with so much. But Olivia really relies on you. Not at all, I'm happy to help, Rachel smiled. In her heart, fatigue spread at the thought of her time being consumed once again. A few weeks later, Rachel returned home after finishing a night shift at the hospital. When she opened the front door, the living room was in disarray. Her father's medications were scattered on the floor, and her mother sat in a chair crying. What happened? Rachel rushed over in alarm. Your father fell and dropped his medicines, Barbara explained with a trembling voice. My knee hurts and I couldn't get up. Robert remained stubbornly silent but was clearly upset. Rachel gathered the medications and checked her father for injuries. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries, but it was an incident that made her acutely aware of her parents' aging. It's okay. I'm here. After that, Rachel finished cleaning and helped her parents to their bedrooms. The clock had already passed 2 a.m. Tomorrow there would be early morning chores again, and an afternoon shift at the hospital was waiting. She sat down in a chair and held her head in her hands from exhaustion. Suddenly, Rachel felt dizzy and collapsed to the floor. She seemed to have lost consciousness for a while, and when she came to, morning light was streaming in. She had no strength in her body and couldn't get up. Rachel? What's wrong? Barbara called from upstairs. I feel a little sick, Rachel answered in a weak voice. How dramatic, Robert said while reading his newspaper. What's a young person doing complaining? Rachel, what about breakfast? Barbara was more concerned about the daily routine than worried about her. Rachel somehow managed to stand up and headed to the kitchen, swaying. The family didn't seriously worry about her condition and expected breakfast as usual. That day at the hospital, her colleague Sarah noticed Rachel's condition. Rachel, let me check your blood pressure. You really don't look well. The examination revealed mild anemia and blood pressure abnormalities due to overwork. The doctor recommended at least several days of rest, but Rachel couldn't rest thinking about home responsibilities. That night, James visited her apartment out of concern. Seeing Rachel's exhausted state, he couldn't hide his anger. "This is abnormal, Rachel. You're not a housekeeper. You should be treated as a family member." "But they're family," Rachel answered weakly. "If I don't do it, who will?" "What about Olivia? She's family too, isn't she?" "Olivia is busy. She has work and wedding preparations." James shook his head. "You work as a nurse too. Why should you carry everything alone?" Rachel couldn't answer because she had taken it for granted. She believed that serving her family was her role. The following week, Olivia's wedding preparations began in earnest. Dress fittings, venue visits, invitation design selection, Rachel's presence was required for everything. Days continued with hospital work on weekdays and wedding preparations on weekends. "Rachel, let's schedule the flower arrangement meeting for next Saturday," Olivia said while looking at her planner. "Can we do the catering tasting the same day?" Rachel checked her schedule book. That day already had her mother's internal medicine checkup and her father's orthopedic appointment scheduled. "Saturday, I have mom and dad's medical appointments. Could we do another day?" "But they said that's the only day available," Olivia said with dissatisfaction. "Can't someone else handle the parents' appointments?" "Who would do it?" "We're the only ones." "Well, let the parents be patient. My wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event." Barbara interjected, "Rachel, Olivia is right. The wedding is more important. The appointments can be postponed." Rachel sighed deeply. Once again, her time and responsibilities were being dictated by others' convenience. But she couldn't voice objections because her opinions were never valued in the family. On the third Saturday of November, Olivia's birthday party was held in the banquet room of the luxury Beverly Hills Hotel, the Peninsula. The venue, illuminated by crystal chandeliers, gathered Olivia's colleagues, friends, and Matthew's law firm associates. It was a lavish party with over 50 guests. Rachel had been running around since morning with final venue decoration and catering confirmations. White roses and calla lily arrangements, chosen at Olivia's request, decorated the venue, and a 3-tiered birthday cake like a wedding cake was placed in the center of the table. The cost easily exceeded $10,000, but Robert proudly declared, "For my daughter, it's a small price." "Rachel, is the photography setup ready?" Olivia, dressed in a pure white silk dress, looked like a bride with breathtaking beauty. A diamond necklace sparkled at her throat. All set, Rachel was adjusting camera angles in a corner of the venue. She wore a plain navy suit, unable to afford appropriate attire for such a glamorous occasion. When the party began, Olivia was truly the queen of the night. Surrounded by friends, filling the air with laughter, dancing happily with Matthew. Her parents watched their daughter with pride, introducing her to guests as "Your pride and joy." "Olivia is truly a beautiful woman," one of Matthew's lawyer colleagues said to Robert. "Like her father, she must be very talented." "Yes, Olivia has been special since childhood," Robert beamed with pride. "She was always the best at everything she did. Even now she excels as a manager at a luxury department store." Barbara joined in, "This child has never been any trouble since she was small. She always made us happy." Rachel was in the kitchen consulting with waiters about meal service. No one noticed her presence, she was like an invisible person. This too was usual. At 9 p.m., the special moment finally arrived. Robert tapped his champagne glass to get attention. The venue fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our daughter Olivia's birthday party tonight despite your busy schedules," Robert's voice echoed through the venue. "Olivia is our pride. She is beautiful, intelligent, and above all has a kind heart." Barbara was moved to tears. "Olivia, you are our precious jewel. And today we have a special gift." Hotel staff brought over a huge golden envelope tied with a red ribbon. The envelope was about A3 size, clearly not an ordinary letter. Olivia excitedly received the envelope. "What is this?" Olivia's eyes sparkled. Open it, Robert smiled with satisfaction. When Olivia opened the envelope, beautiful house photos, keys, and property deeds came out. Murmurs arose from the guests. Could it be? Olivia looked incredulous. It's a new house overlooking the ocean in Malibu, Robert announced. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with an ocean view terrace. A home worthy of starting your new life with Matthew. The venue filled with applause and cheers. Olivia hugged her parents while crying. Dad, Mom, I can't believe it. Such a wonderful gift. Matthew was also moved. Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, such a magnificent gift, we'll never forget this. Barbara said through tears, Olivia, now you can begin a wonderful married life. You need the finest jewelry box. Robert also puffed out his chest, the perfect jewelry box for our Jewel. Your happiness is our greatest joy. Rachel watched the scene from a corner of the venue. The house was worth at least $1 million. Most of the money her parents had saved over their lifetime had been given to her sister in this moment. Complex emotions swirled in her chest, but she maintained her smile. The party continued until late at night. Rachel helped with cleanup until the end and didn't get home until after 2 a.m. A week later, Rachel's birthday arrived. However, there was no lavish hotel party. Instead, a modest dinner was arranged at a cheap diner on the outskirts of town. The fluorescent lighting was harsh, and the plastic tablecloth looked cheap. There were only 2 or 3 other customers. Rachel, happy birthday, Barbara said dutifully. Thank you, Mom, Rachel forced a smile. Robert said while cutting his cheap steak, shouldn't you seriously think about your future? Look at Olivia, she's already got a house. Olivia showed an apologetic expression but said nothing. She was busy with Matthew choosing furniture for their new home, and actually hadn't wanted to attend this birthday dinner. When the meal ended, Barbara said, time for presents, and retrieved a large cardboard box from the car trunk. The box was clearly heavy, and something rattled inside. Come on, Rachel. Open it, Barbara had an expectant expression. Rachel received the box and carefully peeled off the tape. The moment she opened the lid, her smile froze. Inside was a set of old cleaning supplies, a frayed mop, dirty bucket, worn sponges, and the smell of bleach rose up. On top was a white plastic name tag that read housekeeper. Robert began laughing loudly. How's that? Perfect for you, right? His laughter echoed throughout the diner. You're good at cleaning. Now I officially grant you the title of housekeeper. Barbara laughed too. You're really good at cleaning, so we thought this was most suitable. Practical, right? Olivia turned her face away. Matthew showed a disgusted expression but said nothing. Other customers began looking their way. Robert's loud laughter sounded strange in the quiet diner. Even the waitress looked concerned. Rachel picked up the name tag from the box. The word housekeeper pierced her heart deeply. What's wrong? Don't you like it? Robert was still laughing. Considering what you do every day, there couldn't be a more appropriate gift, right? Rachel slowly stood up. Her face was pale and her hands trembled slightly. Thank you, she said quietly. It's very unexpected. See? Barbara looked satisfied. We thought practical gifts were best. Rachel took her handbag and quietly left the restaurant. The family didn't try to stop her. Robert said, women are so emotional, and started laughing again. In the parking lot, Rachel sat in her old Honda Civic. She still held the housekeeper name tag in her hand. That night, Rachel quietly packed in her room. She put only essential clothes, documents, and precious photos into a small suitcase. She left a short letter on her desk. Dear Dad, Mom, and Olivia, thank you for everything over the years. I'm going to find my own worth. Don't worry. Rachel. At 3 a.m., Rachel quietly left the house. Only the sound of the front door closing broke the night's silence. She started the car engine and looked at the house where she had grown up one last time in the rearview mirror. All the house windows were dark, no one noticed her departure. The next morning, Rachel woke up on the sofa in James's small apartment. The 10 a.m. sunlight streamed through thin curtains. James had already left for the repair shop, and on the table were warm coffee, a homemade sandwich, and a note, "Rest well. You're safe. James." For the first time in her life, Rachel faced a morning where she didn't need to take care of anyone. No breakfast preparation, medication management, or cleaning, nothing needed to be done. Along with this sense of liberation, a deep emptiness filled her chest. Meanwhile, something unusual was happening at the Johnson house. "Rachel. Where's breakfast?" Robert shouted from the bottom of the stairs. He was waiting for coffee while reading his newspaper as usual, but there was no sound from the kitchen. Barbara came down from her bedroom. "Is Rachel still sleeping? That's unusual." When the two looked into their daughter's room, the bed showed no signs of use, and a letter was on the desk. Robert read the letter aloud with trembling hands. "What? Finding her own worth? Ridiculous." Robert was irritated. "She'll come back soon anyway. Where else would she go?" However, one day passed, then 2 days, and Rachel didn't return. The house gradually began to fall into chaos. No one made breakfast, Robert panicked, not knowing where his medications were, and Barbara's blood pressure measurements were forgotten, worsening her condition. "Olivia, can you contact your sister?" Barbara called her daughter. "Rachel's cell phone isn't connecting." "But don't worry too much, Mom. She's so responsible, she'll come back soon." However, even after a week passed, there was no contact from Rachel. Olivia's wedding preparations were completely stalled. Flower arrangement meetings, final catering confirmations, invitation mailings, everything had been left to Rachel. "This has become a problem," Matthew said anxiously. "There are only 3 months until the wedding." For the first time, Olivia realized her sister's importance. Nothing can progress without Rachel. By the second week, the house's condition had become tragic. Laundry piled up like mountains, the refrigerator was empty, and Robert's medications were running out. Barbara forgot to take her blood pressure medication and was taken to the emergency room, while Robert's diabetes numbers worsened. "This can't continue," Robert couldn't hide his anxiety. "We need to contact Rachel." However, Rachel's cell phone was turned off, and the hospital only said she was taking indefinite leave. For the first time, the family realized how much one person had been handling alone. After 3 weeks, Rachel finally made contact. It was a short text message, "I'm doing well. No need to worry." Robert immediately called but got voicemail. "Rachel, come home. Let's talk." The next day, another message arrived, "I have something to discuss. Would you meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Café Central on Main Street?" That day, the 3 Johnson family members went to the cafe with nervous expressions. Rachel was already sitting at a back table. Seeing her for the first time in 3 weeks, she somehow looked more vibrant than before. The exhausted expression was gone, and her eyes had a new brightness. "Rachel," Barbara tried to rush over, but Rachel raised her hand to stop her. "Please sit down." Rachel's voice was quiet but conveyed firm resolve. "Rachel, what are you thinking?" Robert said angrily. "We're family, so we should help each other. The house is a mess. We can't do anything without you." "Family," Rachel repeated the word. "Am I family? Or am I a free housekeeper? What are you saying?" "Of course you're family," Robert answered as if it were obvious. "Then why did you give me cleaning supplies and a housekeeper name tag for my birthday? Is that a gift for a family member?" Barbara was at a loss for words. We thought it was practical. You gave Olivia a $1 million house and gave me used cleaning supplies. Is this equal love for family?" Olivia spoke for the first time. "Rachel, I didn't know. I had no idea my parents prepared such a terrible gift." "You're the same, Olivia," Rachel looked at her sister. "You pushed all the wedding preparations onto me while doing nothing yourself. When I nearly collapsed at the hospital, you just said I was being dramatic. Robert was irritated. What are you trying to say? Rachel took a deep breath. Then came the time to confess the truth she had never told anyone. I know that I'm adopted. The cafe fell silent. The color drained from all three faces. When I was 18, I accidentally found documents, Rachel quietly continued. That you took me in when I was 2, that my biological parents died in a car accident, I know everything. Barbara said with a trembling voice, Rachel, we didn't tell you because. You didn't tell me because I'm not your real daughter, right? Rachel said while crying. But even so, I believed I was family. I thought blood didn't matter, that we were a family bound by love. That's right, Robert said frantically. Blood doesn't matter. You're our daughter. Really? Rachel shook her head. Then why is the treatment between Olivia and me so different? Why am I made to work like a housekeeper while Olivia is treated like a princess? That's... Barbara was at a loss for words. For 18 years, you kept this fact hidden. And through your treatment of me, I understood your true feelings, Rachel stood up. I'm not family. I was just convenient labor. Olivia began crying. Rachel, I really didn't know. I had no idea you were suffering so much. You're equally guilty, Olivia, Rachel looked at her sister. Because I'm adopted, you thought it was okay to look down on me. You thought only you, the real daughter with blood ties, had the right to be loved. I never thought such things, Olivia sobbed. But your actions showed it, Rachel took her handbag. I'm tired of this false family relationship. Robert stood up. Wait, Rachel. We were wrong. But you're truly our daughter. Blood doesn't matter. If blood doesn't matter, why have I alone received different treatment? Rachel turned around. I've hoped to be loved as family. But all I got was the title of housekeeper. Barbara stood up crying. Rachel, please. Come home. We need you. You need me? Rachel smiled bitterly. You don't need me as a person, you just need my labor, right? That's not true, Robert was crying. In the 3 weeks you've been gone, we realized how precious you are. If I'm precious, why haven't you treated me preciously until now? To that question, the three couldn't answer. Rachel left the cafe. She could hear Olivia's crying behind her, but she didn't look back. Confessing the truth had lightened her heart. At the same time, it was the moment when the family bond she had believed in for 36 years was completely severed. That night, Rachel cried in James's apartment. They were complex tears mixing sadness and liberation. You were brave, James gently embraced her. It must have been painful to tell the truth. But I don't want to lie anymore, Rachel murmured against his chest. Not to myself or to my family. 2 months passed. At the Johnson house, their entire way of life had fundamentally changed. Robert spent days in deep self-reflection. Acknowledging his ugly nature of adoption discrimination was work that shattered his pride. He began visiting a local family counselor to confront his discriminatory attitudes. The idea that it's okay to treat someone lightly because they don't share blood was wrong, Robert said to his wife through tears. Rachel was our real daughter whom we chose to make family. Barbara felt the same way. In prioritizing social appearances and public opinion, she had lost sight of the most important thing. She was ashamed of herself for being blinded by Olivia's glamorous success and taking Rachel's quiet devotion for granted. Olivia's change was the most dramatic. Her sister's confession made her realize how privileged her position had been. She temporarily suspended wedding preparations and began learning housework. Matthew also supported her decision. Let's postpone the wedding until your family's problems are resolved, Matthew said gently. Rachel will be important family to me too. The family wrote letters to Rachel every week. At first there were no replies, but in the 3rd month, a brief response finally arrived. I've received your feelings. But I need time. 6 months later, Rachel agreed to family reconciliation with conditions. New rules were established. Housework would be shared among all four, Rachel's opinions would be respected equally, and above all, they would treat each other as equal family members. Blood ties don't make family alone, Robert embraced his daughter through tears. Bonds formed by love and respect are what make real family. Rachel, you are our pride. 1 year later in spring, Rachel and James's wedding took place. This time the entire family cooperated in preparations. Olivia planned a bridal shower for her sister, Barbara sewed a handmade wedding dress, and Robert wholeheartedly welcomed mechanic James as his son. Education and occupation don't matter, Robert firmly shook James's hand. You, who treasures Rachel, are our proud son. On the wedding day, Robert took his daughter's arm and walked down the aisle. Proud tears shone in his eyes. Rachel, I want to tell you something. At the altar, Robert spoke to all the guests. This daughter is adopted. But she taught us something more important than blood ties. Real family means people who respect, love, and support each other. Rachel answered her father through tears, Dad, I chose you to be my family. Blood ties aren't necessary. Love is enough. Olivia was also crying. Rachel, I'm truly sorry. I want to be real sisters from now on. After the ceremony, Rachel spoke to everyone, family isn't about being connected by blood. It's about caring for and respecting each other. Today, we became a real family. From that day, the Johnson family began walking as a new family. Rachel and James built a small house nearby, and all four shared dinner every weekend. Housework became shared, and when someone was tired, everyone supported each other. Olivia and Matthew's wedding was also successfully held 6 months later. This time Rachel prepared everything for her sister. However, it wasn't out of obligation but as a gift to her beloved sister. Thank you, Rachel, Olivia embraced her sister. I'm truly happy to have you. Years later, when Rachel and James's first child was born, Robert and Barbara became the best grandparents. They genuinely loved their grandchild who shared no blood ties. Blood ties don't matter, Robert said while holding his grandchild. Love is the bond that connects everything. The Johnson family learned that true family is built not by bloodline, but by love and respect. And that lesson would be passed down to the next generation.